sir. It is the Devil's Puck Luck podcast, where we are your hosts over here, Adam Armbrecht, covering the playoff, at least for right now, Brooklyn Nets on the Locked On Nets podcast, and the New York Football Giants on the One Giant podcast, joined as always by my cousin and your friend, 20-year season ticket holder, Danny McDonough. How are you, sirs? We actually sit on the wrong side of our setup right now.
Oh, yeah. This is different, right?
I have a hard time looking left.
Is that true?
I'm like Zoolander. I'm not an omni-turner. You know what I mean? I can only go one way.
Sorry about your Nets loss yesterday, by the way.
Hey, listen, it is what it is. And it's actually funny because as we talk about this episode, we're going to do a couple of things here. This is recording on Sunday morning. You'll see us on Sunday. You'll see us on Monday. You'll see us on Tuesday. So we're going to wrap up the season for the Devils here first, then talk about the playoff picture, that home ice advantage they have against the Rangers and some of the key matchups. But it is interesting because there's a stark contrast for me covering the Nets and covering the Devils and being a fan of both. Mm-hmm. Very different set of expectations going into these playoffs.
It's almost like the Nets are actually kind of rebuilding as they're in the playoffs, so to speak, you know, and the Devils are actually coming to their own, a young core, and are going to be flourishing for years, and they completed that rebuild process. So the season, man, it was absolutely incredible. A lot of records broken. I don't think anybody thought that we would have over 50 wins this year, breaking the franchise record, obviously, 52 wins, 112 points.
Yep.
And my prediction came exactly true with Jack Hughes' 99 points. If you remember a few episodes ago, I actually predicted that exact number.
Was it 99? I got to go back to the tape on that because I called for 100. I said he would get to the 100 mark. I didn't think you were only 1 point behind
99, buddy.
Prediction. Okay, we'll check the tape. We'll check the tape on that. But it was an incredible season, obviously, for Hughes to tie a bow on this season. They do get what felt like, as we were texting back and forth, a bit of a fizzle to the end of the year in the final game of the season.
Yeah.
Come back in a big way, and we're now running a tally on this. I am batting 1,000. I'm predicting one game off what's going to happen because Luke Hughes gets his first career goal, overtime, game winner. That did feel like the perfect end to the season because it had all the elements of the Devils have used throughout the season. Being down, come from behind. Right? They set a record for the franchise, I believe, in that regard as well, with come from behind wins.
27 come from behind wins.
And on the one hand, you look at that and you go, oh, boy, you don't like to come from behind. But at some point, it does become who you are. Right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a testament to the young core learning and being able to come back in games that they fall behind, especially these better teams too. So we don't want to have as many come from behind wins next year because we want to be leading more. But, the positive of that is that we continue to battle every game, and we showed it every game. The fact we were down 3-0 and 4-1 against the Washington Capitals team is obviously depleted, not playing really for anything, just their pride. But, to see them come back in the fashion they did was unbelievable.
On top of which, also this season, the Devils had, is it the largest turnaround from season to season in NHL history?
49 points.
All the way to 112. So, it'll be funny. We'll talk about it in the off season about how do you duplicate this success because even if you fast forward 2 years, 112 points, there's not a lot of wiggle room there to improve on it. I think consistency would be the thing we'll talk about.
Yeah, it's insane to think about. We have 112 points. We're third in the entire NHL, which is absolutely incredible. So, but watching Luke Hughes score that goal, I got chills, because that's the thing that you love to see to end the regular season with basically your best prospect coming up, Jack Hughes' brother, getting assist from Jack Hughes to finish that game in overtime with a phenomenal goal, phenomenal move. Yeah, just around Ovechkin. Yeah, that's fine. One of the best players in the NHL. So, it's awesome to see. And now we go to the debate, is Luke Hughes going to be starting in the playoffs? And that's the big debate that everybody's talking about.
How do you look at that? Because we don't need to get too much into the playoffs here. We'll break this up into different chunks and be sure to follow us on YouTube and over on social as well. But when I look at it, and I said it coming in, because there's been so many question marks, at least over the course of the season on the defensive end, we said in the first game, yes, he did struggle at times. But I just looked at it and went, positive play, great look, okay, smart, heady, heads up, didn't look overwhelmed. And I said, okay, it's a good building block. Now, game number 2, just because he gets the goal doesn't mean you go, well, now he's arrived and he's all set. But I'll tell you, man, that sequence of him bringing it through the neutral zone, up into the final third, the loop around, that whole entire sequence there, you look at it and go, well, there's something different that he's bringing at the defensive position for this team potentially in these playoffs.
He's moving like Dougie Hamilton does, his shot is not as powerful right now as Dougie Hamilton, I don't think, but he has better moves, better deeds.
Better finesse, right?
Yeah, and that's what he's known for, being a very high-powered, scoring defenseman, and yeah, he had some defensive mistakes in his first few games, like we were talking about, but that's going to happen. For me, I don't think that he should start right away. I think he's 19 years old. I think that the top six have proved themselves to be the top six.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke Hughes and, Brendan Smith being the two odd men out. And I think Luke Hughes is up before Brendan Smith, to be honest with you, and if something happens in the first couple games.
Okay, so we'll dive into that a little bit deeper, specifically when it comes to matchups, and there can be things that we'll discuss about why maybe it's harder for Luke Hughes against the Rangers as opposed to another opponent. But in terms of just tying a bow on the season, where are you on? Let's start with Vitek. Let's just start in between the pipes here. We know Blackwood with the injuries, that's been difficult. I think you're still of the mind that Schmid has earned it and should be the backup going into the playoff run. Did Vitek check all the boxes you expected him to this year, and is basically the consistency factor?
We overachieved goaltending wise. I don't think anybody expected us to be what we were when it comes to goaltending. We started, I think it was 6 or 7 goaltenders last year. We were just a mess.
As all the best NHL teams do.
We were a mess last year.
You cycle.
But now you look at it, and the fact that you're talking about Blackwood and the struggles he had, here throughout the season, had some good games, had some flashes of playing well. But the fact that we're talking about Blackwood struggling, and we've played 3 goalies this year compared to 6 or 7 last year, it's a testament to what we've done and how we've turned things around. Vitek's our number 1. He's played absolutely incredible this year. I think Schmid has earned that right to be his backup in the playoffs.
We said that going back weeks, right? Yeah, it feels like that run was good and not good. I mean, it was great.
It's phenomenal.
Very solid. And I think just that, again, we talk about the same thing with players. You can basically go any given game. In an instance where Vitek was struggling, if you bring in Blackwood and he plays well, you go, well, then he looks like maybe he's going to be surging here in the playoffs. If Schmid gets brought in and he looks good, so you're going to ride that hot hand in terms of the backup goaltending scenario. Yeah. Across the team then, Jack Hughes, we know he had his stretches, but he's a young player. Yeah. He has everything ahead of him. Who's the next guy here? I'll tell you that I think over the back end of this season here, for Timo Meier coming over in the trade, obviously, from San Jose, I really liked and have continued to like that the thing we didn't see immediately has slowly picked up here. And this is what I think it comes down to about getting comfortable, understanding your line mates, understanding how this team plays versus your previous one. His physicality is now there. Yeah. And they need that element of it. The team has also gotten more physical over the last 4 or 5 games. But that part of Timo's game wasn't there for the first handful and has picked up going towards the playoffs.
The funny thing is you don't, in the top 3 scores on the Devils, you don't mention Timo.
Right.
You don't, because he's a physical presence. He's going to get those grinded out, gritty goals in front of the net, which is what he's doing, and you see him below the goal line winning those battles, so it's Timo has been such a great acquisition, and for me, obviously, I think he's going to sign him. We're going to talk about that obviously in the offseason more, when the Brats and the Hallas and the Tatars, if we're going to sign them. But I think everybody has made the contribution we needed for this season.
That's a good one.
And I think that Tuna especially, Tatar especially, has overperformed. I don't think anybody expected him to be a 20-goal scorer. So the fact that he is absolutely incredible for this team.
So talk more on Tuna, but let's categorize that as, is he your overachiever of the season for the New Jersey Devils? Based on expectations, not about, you know what I mean? It's not just stat categories, but who was your overachiever in a great way for the Devils this year?
Yeah, I think it was Tomas Tatar. I really do. I think the fact that he was so solid, and he's a number 1 liner right now, with Nico and with Mercer. It's unbelievable. I don't think anybody expected that. I think that you expected him to be a third-line player, grinded out type of player. You get a dozen goals, 20 assists, you're happy. The fact that he has 20 goals is, to me, it's unheard of, because I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen. And Haula, too. Talk about Haula, right? Yeah. Haula had a tough stretch. He was hitting posts. He was struggling scoring goals. All of a sudden, this guy's killing it. Yeah. All of a sudden, he's scoring goals, just going into the playoffs. And Haula, every single year of his career, has made the playoffs. And we talk about this, and that's what we need going into what is essentially another season with the playoffs, because it's a completely different animal, and it's awesome to see. But is Tatar the same for you? Is he your overachiever of the year?
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny because when you think about him as a veteran versus the younger players, maybe that is the benefit.
Yeah.
Right, that the way that you actually end up outperforming what you expect your stat lines to be is on the premise that you've got some young guys. They're going to be a little bit out of place at times, or trying to press a little bit, and your job is to be consistent. And in that consistency, you get rewarded with probably some more favorable looks, right? If you're a veteran like Tuna on a more veteran-laden team, based on your skill set and who you are, your job is to serve and service everybody else's needs on the roster before your own.
Right.
In these instances, as this young team went through certain stretches, you want to be able to lean on a veteran. It's why it's so critical to have guys like that. On the Holla Gesundheit. That's what the problem is. I've said holla too many times, and it's throwing me off.
I think you said halal too.
Well, because I like it's a nice Jewish delicacy, and if you get a chance to try it, I think it's delicious, especially if you're in the city. But he, along with McLeod, we talk about the face-offs, right? Being among some of the top face-off leaders in the league when it comes to those percentages, leading the team, that's been critical as well. So again, if I look back at this season, so much of it is, can you check the box that you were supposed to?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, like, the young players are coming along. But I wonder, like, do you think that actually, when you look back at a 112-point season, they're overachieved, they're ahead of their timeline. Mm-hmm. But also, when you go across the board, you're like, it's not like anyone had an insane year. Like, I mean, Jack Hughes had a monster one. Yes. Everybody else is kind of like, showing incremental growth. But when you put 5 or 6 guys all taking a little step forward, it's more than just, well, you scored 2 more goals than you did last year, 3 more goals, 4 more assists. Sure. Yeah, but we got 5 guys doing that. Now we have 15 more assists.
Right, it goes to how many 30 goal scorers we have, spreading the puck around.
Yeah.
And Tuna has definitely benefited, obviously, from the young kids being so fast, throwing pucks at the net, us being in the top 10 in shots. I think we're in the top 5 with shots on goal.
And Jack Hughes is up there as well in terms of shots.
I think he had 336, if I remember correctly. We were looking at the stats.
Do you recall what the difference is between is on slap shots for him?
No.
Because he has one of the highest, I think, slap shot percentages.
Oh, scoring. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's his bread and butter for how he goes about it.
Because you see him on the wing coming down and when he's at the top of the circle just ripping the puck, And Holla did that against Washington. It was a phenomenal goal. But, point being, going back to what you're saying, we're spreading the puck around. You're seeing guys have career years, but I still think they have room to grow. I don't think that's their ceiling. Nico Hischier being one of them. He had a phenomenal year.
These feel like the guys that we love. Now, who's your underrated candidate of the year? Could be Hischier, could be Mercer. It's the dudes that you don't talk about game to game because
it's underrated.
Is
Kevin Ball.
I thought it was going to be Miles Wood.
No,
that's interesting.
Miles Wood had a great end to the year.
Okay. First, focus on your underrated player first, and then I'll ask you a question.
Kevin Ball struggled at points of the season. He was rumored to be getting traded. The whole Sharks deal. To get Timo. He was on the trading block. I think that really pressed him a little bit. I think that really he was struggling mentally, kind of not knowing where he was going to be.
Doesn't feel great, by the way.
No,
when a team is having the season they're having, they're like, and maybe not so much for you anymore.
And he's a young kid. Yeah. So, we always talk about the mental anguish that the seasons are going to bring. The fact that Kevin Ball restructured his game and was a consistent defensive force for the Devils, and I think was one of the best defenders in a lot of games.
Yeah.
He's really, to me, he's one of the more underrated players, especially in the last third of the season. I think he showed incredible improvement. And we go to talking about Luke Hughes, is if Luke Hughes steps into the lineup, it's not going to be for Kevin Ball, in my opinion. I can see it being for someone like Damon Severson. But to me, again, we'll get to that later, like you talked about. But for me, Kevin Ball is one of the underrated guys. But also, I think Vitek Vanecek. I think he's extremely underrated as well. I think that no one expected him to have the season he was going to have. And I think around the league, people don't give him the credit that he really deserves, because he was one of the standing forces for this Devils team, especially when we struggled defensively for periods.
And Schmidt, I think really you actually came up with this thinking that, hey, sometimes when you see the young backup and he's there and he's performing well, it does give you that little extra burst. And after that stretch for Schmidt, when Vitek came back in, it was like, all of a sudden, he seemed to be a little more dialed in and hopefully coming in at the right time here as we head into the playoff picture. Miles Wood, this isn't a joke, but it's funny. He has been a guy that has been frustrating for you and for a lot of Devils fans. Like, let's be realistic here. I label Danny as being the problem when it comes to Miles Wood, but it's not. However, if you want to go into the category of like a dude that has had his struggles this year, but is maybe playing some of his best hockey at the right time, like now's the time to do it.
Yeah, no, listen.
Do it now.
I think Miles Wood knows too in the back of his head. He's worked his ass off with this team for years, and to get into the playoffs and to have the chance he has now to prove himself because he's coming on a contract year.
Right.
He's on a contract year, so he's going to ask for money. He's going to ask for money because
you should always ask for money. If you're going to do a job.
Bigger money.
Oh.
So it's going to, again, this is stuff we'll talk about contract-wise.
But this does impact how players perform.
Absolutely. And I think that with his struggles, especially in the beginning of the year, he had, I think, a stretch of 20 games without a goal. He played way better down the stretch against someone like Kevin Ball. So Miles Wood was really showing flashes that he's throwing his body around, forechecking, which we love to see. And when the BMW lines together, we talk about it. That's when he plays his best.
Yes.
Because you have McLeod winning faceoffs. You have Bastion really, really being that complementary piece for Miles Wood. Again, dirty pucks, dirty goals in front of the net, whipping the puck, at the goal line, in front of the goal and just cleaning up. And that's what we're seeing more. But to your point, Miles Wood's going to get a good amount of money. It's just going to be a matter if we want to spend it on him, with everything that we have to do in the offseason. But he deserves it.
Yeah.
It's as much as we joke around about it, as much as Adam busts my chops about it, he deserves it. He's a good fourth line player. He's a great fourth line player, in my opinion. That could be on some third lines in the NHL too.
Yeah, and the reality is when you make the trade for Timo Meier, it's not one to one, but you see what's being introduced into the locker room,
Sure.
what's going to be introduced potentially into the payroll. So hopefully, at least in the short term, it inspires the best out of Wood going into this series. That being the case, my friend, we're going to wrap this one up here. Like I said, coming in on Monday and again on Tuesday, we're going to go specifically into matchups that matter inside of this playoff series against the Rangers. We know the success we had during the regular season against them. We also know the Rangers are a very different team now coming in, as are the Devils, right? So I think we're going to spend some time doing specifically what are the offensive matchups for the Rangers that the Devils need to be sharp and dialed in on defensively. Where can Vitek move the needle for this game? And then how do we attack the Rangers? How do we have success in that final third?
Well, let's split it up too. We're going to split it up because Adam and I are going to be a little remote for the next 24 to 48 hours. So what we'll do is we'll probably do a couple segments.
Yeah.
I'm going to cover what the Devils need to do against the Rangers defense.
Okay.
Why don't you cover what the Devils defense needs to do against the Rangers offense?
And just like that, you will have a Devils puck luck sandwich with the meat being game one of the first round playoff series, where, as we know, the New Jersey Devils earn every bit of that home ice advantage. Hopefully something that we will see them taking advantage of, and the fan base bringing that advantage starting at the Rock.
You know what else we could do?
Yeah.
We'll have some playoff predictions too across the NHL. I think we should do that,
Yeah, we will. You know what? That's funny. It's a good thing you bring that up. We'll do a little loop around there. First round playoff matchups. Who do we think's coming out around the NHL? And we'll see if Danny and I disagree. And we'll keep that tally running here, because as the podcast grows, we want to have some sense of how smart and right I am and how difficult it is for Danny to kind of keep himself up.
I don't want to give anything away, but we're both taking the Devils in the Devils Rangers series, so we could say we're doing that.
It's going to be a push there. It's going to be a push.
We'll talk about how many games the Devils are going to win in. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, that will be interesting. All right, stay tuned for that. In the meantime, over on YouTube, where you're watching us right now, go ahead and subscribe to the Devils Puck Luck channel. You get over to Twitter, where you can follow NJ Devils PL. You can also follow at Adam Armbrecht, at Danny the Face, and on Instagram,
Devils Puck Luck.
You better believe it, my friend. We are going to be coming in with as much content as possible, breaking down all the different angles of this first round series and all the way through that deep playoff run. Notice the hat. It is back. And just like the man on the ice, things are going to be gravy.